Peace and blessings, family. This is your brother asarimhotep with the Mandela Institute for the Advancement of Science and Culture and the Martin Delaney Center for Egyptology. Today is Friday, September the 24th, 2021, and we welcome back a very, very special guest, Dr. Tshilemalema Mukenge, out of the Democratic Republic of Congo, via Atlanta, Georgia. And y'all have been hearing and seeing me advertise this book, the latest book from Dr. Mukenge, Muntu-Wa-Nzambi, Portrait of Human as God's Special Creation. And we are here to discuss the ins and out of this text. So I know y'all been waiting for this for a hot minute now. So all of that and more when we return in just a moment. Welcome to the Mbongi. Again, I am your host, Brother asarimhotep, and we have a very, very exciting show for you. Always want to send love and a shout out to everyone who is catching us live all across the world. And then, of course, much love for you who will be catching the archive of this program. And so before we get started, just want to make a few announcements. And the first one being the upcoming trip to Egypt in February of 2022. And so many of you know that I was a part of a documentary film called Hapi, and Hapi is the ancient Egyptian name for the Nile River, and it's subtitled how the role of economics in the development of civilizations. And so these same folks who developed the documentary film are putting on a tour of Egypt, aka Kemet or Ta Mary, or a host of other names that you may know it as. And so there will be a big conference there during that time. And I am one of the speakers who will be presenting at the conference. I, along with a very distinguished panel, Professor James Smalls, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Brother Anthony Browder, Dr. Solange Ashby, Dr. Rosalind Jeffries, Brother Mfadishi Jehuti Mess, and last but not least, Dr. Wade Nobles. So it's going to be a very, very powerful conference. It's going to be a very, very powerful tour. And so if you are interested in going and seeing this live and seeing the monuments and visiting the Nubian villages and things of that nature, go to akettours.com so you can get more information about the tour and the conference. And so shout out to Sister Felicia and Brother Taki of the Hapi Films crew and producers for putting this important conference on. And so again, that is going to be Aket Tours. You see the link on the bottom of the screen. And of course, make sure you all get the book, Muntu-Wa-Nzambi. You can find it on Amazon.com or maduandelapress.com. And we'll be discussing more about this text in a moment. And lastly, of course, visit the Spreadshirt shop so you can purchase one of the mini t-shirts that we have. This is for the Kimoyo, the art and manner of vitality and dynamism, aka African spirituality, and its logo that we've given it. And then, of course, the renaming of African Americans by the Bayankole or the Bayankola. And there's more. And so I'm currently wearing this shirt here that you see, and this will be actually exclusive to those who join the Patreon page. And so for those who have not joined the Patreon page, you can help support this channel by joining the page and the upcoming documentary film Chin Into, where we will be comparing and showing visually the relationship between Bantu cultures and that of ancient Egypt or ancient Kemet. And so there's a long-standing relationship that the public is not generally aware of. And so we will explore that. And your donations and your support help to make this film possible. And so, speaking of the tour that we just mentioned, I will be shooting some of the documentary while we are in Egypt. So everything is coming together. You'll get to see some of the first footage, of that process. So love and light to Sundiata, Ata Kakra Nzambi. Welcome to the program. Peace and blessings to Jeremy Chapman, to Harold Richardson, to Sister Tamika, Uwa Abantum, welcome back. Sister Naja Phillips, thank you for joining us. Lee Sankofa McCoy, thank you for joining us from Facebook. Peace and blessings, Brother Black Panther from the Mossy Warrior Clan. We'll be on Brother Kofi Pasai's program. They just released a new book, and I will be joining their program a little bit later on tonight at 7 p.m. Central Time, so 8 p.m. Eastern. So everybody is going to hop over to Kofi Pasai TV, and we're going to get it in and congratulate the brother on another release of a text. So we just releasing text. African scholars are just letting the world know how we do it. So peace and love to all of you over there at Mossy Warrior Clan and the Kofi Pasai research team. Peace to Emmanuel Adama. Thank you for joining. Brother Conan Lee, all the way over there in the UK. Peace and blessings, good brother. Jaded Imok Hekara. Yes, and I did get your question, so I'm asking one of your questions, Brother Jaded. And Zane Montego, peace and blessings. Tete Usamaat Ross Neferu, peace and blessings. Thank you for joining. And Maurice Cease, help me to pronounce that correctly so I don't look crazy in these YouTube streets for mispronouncing names. Ty Lackey, Hotep, peace and blessings. And then I said your name already, but peace and blessings from Mobile, Alabama in the building. Thank you all for joining. And those of you who, of course, listening and haven't made yourself known in the chat, love and light. I'd like to thank all of you for joining the program. So without further ado, with all my announcements done, I'm going to introduce our guest. And so let me just read his bio real quick. And we, of course, are talking about Dr. Tshilemalema Mukenge. And we're gonna because I know I'm mispronouncing it with my southern country slang and accent. So we're gonna get the real pronunciation from Dr. Mukenge in just a moment. And so Dr. Mukenge is a retired professor and professor emeritus from Morris Brown College in Atlanta, Georgia. While at Morris Brown, he founded the Africana Studies Department and served as its chair. His research interests to the present have expanded from family and religion among the Luba of Congo to culture and customs of the Congo, and now to the portrait of human from the African universe of creation stories and religious beliefs. In recent years, he has developed a strong interest in reformulating written academic knowledge from the Luba ethnography into a language that the general public can understand and appreciate. Among his publications, he is the author of Culture and Customs of the Congo by Greenwood Press. Born into the Democratic Republic of Congo, Dr. Mukenge is the founder and leader of Coins of Hope, which is a charitable ministry in Congo that provides education to the youth and functional literacy to adults in preventive health and sustainable farming. Dr. Mukenge holds a PhD in social anthropology from McGill University, Montreal, Canada. He is married to Dr. Ida Rousseau Mukenge, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, who is a professor of sociology at Morehouse College in Atlanta. They have 4 children, Indaya, Mwadi, Shimpo, and Mulongo, and 3 grandchildren. And so, with that said, I want y'all to put your hands together, snaps and claps, praise and worship to our good guest, Dr. Tshilemalema Mukenge. And where is my button that won't release? There we go. How you doing, sir?
Doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you.
All righty. For those who are, followers of the channel, we've done an initial interview with Dr. Mukenge, which you can find on this channel to our first interview. And you can also see on this channel a lecture that he did a number of years ago in Atlanta. I forgot where we at, Morehouse. I think it was at Morehouse.
Yes, Morehouse.
And he was giving us some insight into the Baluba culture and some very key items in the language. So you can also find that video on this channel as well. So we welcome him back. And the reason, again, well, there's, he can come anytime and just talk about anything, but it's a very special day because he recently released this book, which is Muntu-Wa-Nzambi, Portrait of Human as God's Special Creation, and is subtitled From African Creation Stories, Religious Beliefs, and Cultural Practices. So we're going to discuss this text. And again, welcome Dr. Mukenge to the program.
Thank you so much.
First and foremost, as was read in the intro, you are originally from the Democratic Republic of Congo, but what part are you from, and what makes that place so special and unique, besides the fact that you were born there?
I'm from Kasai. Kasai is in the center of the Congo. And I used to tell people that if you want, from wherever you are, if you want to go to the center of the world, go to Kasai. I will tell you why I say that. If you look at the map, Kasai is in the center of the Congo. The Congo in the center of Africa. Africa is in the center of all the continents. So from wherever you are, you want to get to Kasai, just tell the pilot, go to the center. And the pilot will go to Africa. When in Africa, he or she will go to the Congo. When in the Congo, he or she will go to Kasai, the center. So that's where I am from. And that's it. That's where I'm from.
All righty. I'm going to, while you were talking, I was looking for a map of the Democratic Republic of Congo. So if y'all are not familiar with the geography, you know, it is really dead smack in the center of Africa, surrounded by Angola, Zambia, Tanzania, Burundi, Rwanda, Uganda, South Sudan, Central African Republic, Republic of the Congo, Gabon, and Cameroon. And so, you know, the Congo is has a very rich history in many ways in one. And we will be having more individuals from the Congo to give us different aspects of the history and culture. And I wish I had a flyer made up, but we have a sister. She lives in Angola, and she has her own YouTube channel. And all she does is discuss Congo. So her father, I believe, is of Luba ancestry, and her mother is of I don't know if you would just say Bakongo, which she speaks Kikongo. And so she will be on the 7th of October, that first week of October. So she's 14 hours ahead of us. So it will be like 11 o'clock, 11:30, something like that, when we interview her. And so she'll be in the future. It will be that Friday for those of you who are in Australia at like 11 or 11:30 that day. So I'll have more information about when we have her on. But it is not much literature written about the Luba language and culture in English. And so, you know, as I always state, my introduction into Luba language and culture was from Dr. Mubabinge Bilolo. And do I have see, I'm not back home in Philly, so I don't have all my books. But this is one of his texts written in French. And he does a lot of this. He does a lot of comparing of the Luba language with the ancient Egyptian language. So, you know, me being a linguist, I still do real heavily compare Kikongo language with the ancient Egyptian. But when I came across Dr. Bilolo, I started using the Chiluba language, and it has become very, very fruitful in my research. So I have yet to get it down and understand and be able to speak it, but I have a lot of text that I can use in dictionaries that I can use to do my comparisons. But with that said, this is one of the reasons that a text like this is very valuable, because again, if you want to know about the language and certain aspects of the culture, 9 times out of 10 is going to be in French. And so, you know, most of us in the United States don't speak French, and so to have a text like this in English is very valuable. And so I want to ask you first and foremost, what what is the text about? And then my follow-up question to that is, what was your motivations for compiling this text?
Okay. This text, the book, is about the human being, human identity. I wanted to find out what characterizes humans as humans.
Hmm.
I departed from the assumption that the human being is special in God's sight. And I wanted to substantiate with the views of Africans across the continent, views about who the human being is. And my research allowed me to identify several aspects of humanity. One is that the human being is essentially a spiritual being in a physical body. And the human being is spiritual in many respects. The first one being the fact that the African people believe that the human being was created by God, who infused the spirit of God in the human being. And that's the spirit that animates the body, keeps the person alive, and that spirit has aspects, has dimensions. And in addition to that, the African people believe that God created the human being with extraordinary powers, the powers to do extraordinary things.
Hmm.
And the power, that gift was full until at some point the relationship, the initial relationship between the creator and the human being was perturbed by something, and we may talk about those things.
Hmm.
Then the relationship was redefined in the sense that God separated. Well, let me go back. It
All
was
right.
believed that in the beginning, after creation, heaven, God and the spirits were close, were living close to earth with humans.
Hmm.
So there were interactions between the two. At some point, the humans did some things that the creator used. Okay, let me separate my residence from the earth. And then the relationship was modified. What happened was that the humans lost some of the extraordinary powers they had, but until today, there are still people who are born with talents, with gifts higher than the standard, than, than the standard. And some of the people use their extraordinary powers to destroy others.
Hmm.
That's where you have the notion of sorcerer, for example, and witchcrafts. And there are some others who use theirs to build lives. The dream interpreters are there. The healers are among those. So that's one important aspect of spirituality. African spirituality also is manifest in the fact that the human being can become possessed by the spirit through trance or consecration. Most African peoples practice initiation. Initiation is allows one to ascend to the status of spirit, especially people in a particular position, particular status, like rulers, like kings. So when they are being consecrated, they incorporate the spirit and become, in a sense, equals of the spirits, so that using the power of the spirits, they can protect the country better, their population better. And the last aspect that I will mention is the power of reincarnation. African culture, African societies believe in the reincarnation of ancestors. So children are reincarnated spirits who, so they come back. So that aspect, the human being, essentially a spiritual being in a physical body. And as such, the human being is a being in a relation with the spirits, relation with other human beings, and relation with natural species. Relation with the spirits, belief in the creator, belief in the creation, belief in the divine providence, and acts of devotion toward the spirit, toward God, and toward divinities. Divinities are the highest spirits in God's creation. Some of them assisted God in the creation with some assigned functions, and others continue to live on earth in the government of God, to serve particular services to the people. The most known religious system, the pantheon of the Yoruba, for example. We have the Orishas that have particular functions to take care of the human beings in particular areas. That aspect. The relationship to other human beings include many services that the human beings are expected to give to one another. Okay. One particular aspect is that the human being is ethic bound member of community. In all communities, there are moral principles, some of which are designed to protect the human being's natural rights, which means also the obligation for the human being to respect the rights of others, which also implies that in case of violations, there will be sanctions. And those sanctions may be supernatural, they may be, and they are also, we know, they are also natural in the sense that civil, in the sense that societies have a punishment. But it is believed that some of the sanctions derive from the fact that the Creator continue to protect the rights of humans, And the human can use their own power, for example, to to uh, to sanction, to punish in a way a person who has violated. I will give you an example.
All right.
It is expected that everyone will respect the parents. But a parent who has been disrespected by a son or a daughter may use words that create misfortune. Will say, okay, if I'm your mother,
Mm.
whom you were expected to respect, but you have disrespected me this way. Okay, if I'm your mother, if I have that right, then something will happen to you. And actually, African people say that things do happen in those cases. I have an example. I sent some money to relatives in the Congo.
Mm.
They were in, they was misplaced, displaced. I'm sorry, displaced from Shaba. One of the people I sent the money to, that was supposed to be distributed, used it alone.
Mm.
And some of the people who were entitled to the money pronounced the word saying, okay, if that money was for us too, but you have used to buy goats for you to enrich yourself, then if that money was for us, those goats will die. And I received a letter from the person who had added the goats, that the goats have died. So, okay, it's to say that the moral power is
Uh-huh.
part of the um, guiding principles of relationships between humans. And we
Mm.
know that there is care for visitors, care for guests, care for um, care for children, care for
Mm.
the sick, care for the dying. Okay.
I see.
That's relationship with, among humans, and their relationship with nature, with animals, with trees. I see, or you want me to stop?
No, you remind me of, I'm not sure if you were familiar with this text, but Dr. Malana Karenga
Uh-huh.
out of California, he has 2 PhDs, and his second PhD was on the ancient Egyptian concept of Ma'at.
Mm-hmm.
And so he made a public book out of his second PhD dissertation on Ma'at, the moral ethics of ancient Egypt. And there's a segment or a chapter, or it's actually 3 chapters. And they're kind of broken up. And one of the things that he mentions in terms of the ancient Egyptians was in terms of this concept of Ma'at,
Mm-hmm.
that the that you had these this concept of worthiness,
Mm-hmm.
and your life had to be lived in relationship to, and when you end, had to be found worthy amongst God, amongst your community,
Mm-hmm.
and amongst nature.
Mm-hmm.
And it appears that you are echoing those sentiments. um and I wanted to get into, because you reminded me, please forgive me, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm always doing these comparisons in my head across Africa, and it seems that it's not even, it seems, we know that Luba tradition is not all that you talk about in the text, that you go all across
That's right.
Africa and show the shared comparison. I mean, the shared cultures and customs across the continent. But you mentioned this. I mentioned all of this to say that it is this notion of worthiness in front of God, in front of community, and in front of nature, that the declaration of innocence and the declaration of virtues in ancient Egypt is, one of the quintessential identifiers of the ancient Egyptians themselves. So you will, of course, see on the pyramid walls and the coffin texts, these declarations of innocence, meaning that, when the person dies, he or she declares what they have not done in this lifetime, to demonstrate their worthiness to go to the beyond in the particular heavens. And you mentioned in the text, what chapter is that? Is it 7 or 8? The declaration of innocence for the Luba people, and I like the context because it ties all into this notion of relationships and natural rights with each other. So I want you, because you mentioned, yes, chapter 7, an ethic bound community member, talking about the human. So can you please go over that? Why even among the Luba tradition there is this sense. Can you explain how this comes to be, in terms of the statements of the Declaration of Innocence among the Luba before they pass, and just the ins and out of that, and then I'll follow up after that. Go ahead.
Okay. I learned about it from what people say when they are in a bad situation, they cannot explain by their own behavior. So they say, I have not killed anyone. I have not refused food to anyone. I have not disrespected my elders. I have not put barriers on public streets. I have not violated a minor, which means that they accept the power and the right to existence with the others. And what happens when someone is about to die? The members of the family members come around the person and want to reconcile. Each one of them recalls the words of malice they might have pronounced against the person, and also they confront the person himself. Is there something that you need to tell us? Have you violated anyone's, killed somebody? And when the person dies, the farewell is not for the living. Each one, they are addressing the person. Each adult say, okay, if I, your brother or your sister, if I'm responsible for your death, come to me and take me along. But if you are dead by punishment for what you have done wrong to a human being, you are alone you are going to plead your case to the ancestor by yourself. So the human being, life is not ending. Life continues to continue. And the transition is appearance to the court of the ancestors, saying, I have lived well. Okay, come and live with us. But if you have violated the right of somebody else, if you have done wrong, you'll have to defend yourself.
Let's see. And I'll just read some of the what an individual may say that they have not done. And, of course, I have not killed anyone. I have not assaulted anyone. I have not denied food to anyone. And anyone who is familiar with ancient Egyptian Declaration of Innocence and Declaration of Virtues, these are the very same ones that you will find in ancient Kemet. And our good brother Black Panther is in the chat, and he has a community journal, Killmonger's Corner, and I submitted an article to actually both of the journals, but one of them has to deal with the the African superhighway of wisdom and the distances that African people would travel just to get initiated into various different wisdom traditions. And there's a segment on there where I discuss the Declaration of Innocence, because I found literature where we see that in West Africa. And I wish, of course, that this book was out so I can add another source to this common feature of African culture that is not just present there in ancient Egypt, is not just present there among the Luba, but the late Amadou Hapati Ba talks about this amongst the people in Burkina Faso. I found this also in Nigeria, and even to the extent that Martin Luther King Jr. has the same thing. But what's unique about what's in your text is that it connects each individual Declaration of Innocence to a particular natural right. And I think it brings a fuller understanding of why one would want to declare one's innocence of these particular taboos and crimes in the community. And so, for those who don't have the text, of course, again, you can go to Amazon.com and get the text Muntu-Wa-Nzambi, so you can know exactly what it is that we're talking about. And so this is a very, very important chapter. And then, of course, that I have not killed anyone links directly to the right to life. I have not assaulted anyone leads directly to the right to physical integrity, and et cetera, et cetera. And so this is a very powerful text unto itself, and chapter unto itself among the greater texts. But I want to ask now, actually, I'm going to ask a question from one of our good community members. They actually had a question for you regarding chapter 11. Let me find it real quick. This is an email question. And this is from Brother Jaded Ankh. And he says, in chapter 11, Baba Mukenge talks about the importance and reverence for even the smallest of trees, especially as they were used in daily life, and the role that these things play in the stewardship of resources. Is this reverence based on some way with the personage of the forest itself as a parallel of a human community? And I don't know if that makes sense the way that I read it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a post real quick. Hopefully add banner. And so that's the question that he asked there. If you can read it.
Okay. Do you want me to answer?
Yes, if you can, if you understand what he's saying.
I depart from the African understanding of creation. In the book, I talk about the human being is special. Speciality in the sense that each God's creation is unique in a sense. So we have talked about the aspects of the uniqueness of the human being. But other species are unique as well. Each one has life. That life represents the portion of the spirit of the creator in that particular species, which allowed it to function fully, to achieve, to realize its identity. So in agriculture, when African people farm, they are entertaining relationships with the plants. As that the plants are there to contribute to their well-being. If you can remember in the story of the Yoruba, God sent the Archie spirit, divinity, Orishanla, with the hen and the pigeon to create earth by drawing soil from a bucket. And so the divinity would be drawing the soil, and the hen and the pigeon spreading it all over to dry the marshy land that was there before. That was the first time. The second time, Oldumare sent the divinity Orishanla with hen and pigeon, this time for meat, and sent them also with palm trees for food, that's the kernel, for a drink, that's the to make wine, and I'm sorry, for food and drink, and also there was God sent the rain and so on. What I'm trying to say is that the spirit of people in of species is designed to help them fulfill the functions that the Creator is assigned to them in their services to the humans. And the humans have the responsibility of protecting them. And we see that in situations, in relationships, in terms of totemic animals or totemic plants. The people respect that plant, and that plant is servicing the people, and there is a relationship of reverence between the two and mutual protection.
Hmm.
I'm not sure I answered your question.
Yes. Well, that is Brother Dejed and Unk's question, but I think it answers, and it reminds me of uh, the recent ancestor Baba Credo Mutwa out of South Africa, and in his text, Indaba My Children, 1964, and he talks about how, at least in Zulu tradition, the trees are seen as human beings, you know, in a particular type of community, and so it, you know, it has me wonder. Like I found additional um, supporting evidence that this is kind of common in traditional Africa. That trees, for example, in many respects, are seen as human beings, and uh, but it's interesting because of the language of the African languages, according to Jean-Claude Mboli, who wrote a text in French, The Origin of African Languages. He traces most of the words in these related languages like Bantu, Sango, Somali, ancient Egyptian, Wolof, etc., comes from words for trees, and how these words for the tree is in its branches then had derivative meanings that became most of the vocabulary that we see in the languages now, and which would explain, to me, would support the scientific evolutionary, you know, argument of Homo sapiens coming out of the forest. And so, of course, since the trees were so essential to survival, it would be part of that initial forming of language. If you know, we want to go down the evolutionary path, but it looks like you wanted to say something before I make you lose your thought.
The I see that as an analogy. The the tree uh, grows out of roots. They form the trunk,
Mm-hmm.
and they are the branches and the leaves.
Hmm.
So when we study genealogies, it's like a tree. The
Mm-hmm.
founders are the tree, and the tree will expand, and the branch will have the smaller branch into the leaves. That's how, for example, we we can explain the existence of clans that derive from a particular ancestor.
Hmm.
But the kind of spirit that we are talking about now is not that the human beings came from the trees,
Hmm.
but the one who made the human being by infusing self spiritually in the human
Hmm.
being did the same in the street, in the trees.
Hmm.
So when we approach the trees, we must have the respect for the spiritual being from God, which is in them. And we know that being is there, knowing the role, the function of the plants to us, providing us food, providing medicine, which are good for us. So they are providers for us. And in addition to that, they carry the spirit of the Creator. So
Mhm.
we treat them with reverence and gratitude. And that also means requirement for us to respect them, to treat them right.
Mhm.
Uh, you were talking about the Gikuyu people
Mhm.
have that kind of relationship with the Sigmo tree. It is they taught them. They respect the tree, and the tree respect them, and they render mutual services to one another. And
Mhm.
others have animals for that. So it's the notion of uh, sacredness
Mhm.
of the trees or the animals as carriers of the spirit of the Creator, and being at the same time providers of services to us and protectors for us.
Mhm.
And, and we are expected to develop relationships of conviviality, of mutual service to one another,
Mhm.
and take the people who raise cattle. The cattle provide for them, and they provide for the cattle, and they protect each other, and it has a lot of sacred functions associated to it.
Mhm. And the question that was asked of from Brother Jajed Monk was about chapter 11, and chapter 11 is titled the a steward in relation to human as a steward of community's natural resources. And the question that I have for you regarding this, in terms of, what do you mean by a steward of the natural resources? And then the follow-up question would be, how do you, if you do, compare the notion of steward of natural resources versus what we see in the Abrahamic traditions, where man is seen to dominate or supposed to have dominion over all of the natural resources in living things? Because you seem to be discussing the opposite in terms of relationships, these sacred relationships between uh, nature and man, as if man's not a part of nature, but uh, nature and man, versus having this idea of control. So if what is your idea of stewardship, and is there any contrast between the idea of stewardship that you discuss in chapter 11 versus the you shall be the ruler of all the living things that come upon the earth, as far as like the Adam and Eve story?
Actually, I use uh, the concept of stewardship loosely
uh,
to mean uh, caretaking. So, taking care for each other. As I mentioned earlier, in post-creation era, animals and humans live together, taking care of each other.
Mm.
That's number one. And we say that God has created us and given us resources. In the story of the Gikuyu, Creator Ngai took the ancestor of the Gikuyu to the top of the mountain Kenya and showed him the plan with the plants, animals, and all good things. Saying these are for yours, for you, and your children to use to prosper.
Mm.
So stewardship will mean approaching those gifts from God in a way that serves us and protecting them at the same time. So there is that notion of mutual services between one another, peaceful relationship. We mentioned the respect that the healers and the farmers have toward the plant, okay, as a source of food and source of medicine. Those are peaceful relationship of mutual respect. I don't see in any African tradition the notion of dominion over the plant and the animals, the notion of just destroying the plants just for personal accumulation. I don't see that. And the meaning. Well, let me give an example. The formation of kingdoms in African traditions. Let's take from the kingdom of the Congo, Ilunga Chibinda went to the south and formed the kingdom of Lunda. And people from Lunda went farther down to form the kingdom, other kingdoms there. What's characteristic, one of major characteristic, is those people did not go there to destroy the existing culture or populations. They adopted them and they allowed them to grow with their own principles, with their own resources that they have. So conquering other species is not for destroying them or not for just showing that we are powerful or to transform them in new image, but to allow them to grow the way they were destined to grow. So the notion of dominion and rulership is foreign to African theology.
It reminds me again of ancient Kemet and how even though they had an expansionist agenda at various times of its history, what you see in the record is that they would incorporate the local traditions. It wasn't like it was they imposed much on them. Of course, they were shared tradition, but local deities and ancestors were brought into the pantheon in different places, and that seems to be a common theme in Africa. But before we move forward, I want to remind the viewer to That is right. Hit the like button. And if you are not a subscriber of the channel, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers. And so the more you share and like this video, the more people see it. And potentially more people will subscribe to the channel so that we can make the information like we have here today known to a wider and broader, audience. And this is some very, very powerful things being said here today. And so, again, our guest is Dr. Tshilemalema Mukenge, and we are discussing his book, Muntu-Wa-Nzambi, Portrait of Human as God's Special Creation. And so this was released last month, and you can get the text on Amazon.com. And this is, we'll probably have to do like a study group to go over, everything in the text. And so our guest is back, and there was a question from the audience. So let me see if I can find it again. Here we go. It says, Dr. Mukenge, is there any precedent for atheism in his community? I'm assuming in the Luba community. And your thoughts on that particular paradigm in terms of atheism. And he says he appreciates the level of conversation. Thank you. So basically, is there space and room in Luba tradition for atheism? And what are your particular thoughts about the concept of atheism?
Allow me to extend to other Africans, even though I have not been in many other places. Atheism is not an African notion. All African religions believe in the existence of one God creator, who is creator of everything that exists, the universe and all in it, visible and invisible. So atheism is not African. If someone tells you, an African tells you that he or she's atheism, just ask him, where have you been? That means it brought something from somewhere else, not from Africa.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, we had a show recently discussing that, and I essentially made the argument that it's impossible to be, or I'm not saying that you cannot be African and an atheist, but from an African perspective, it's impossible for you to be atheist, even when you think that you're atheist. Because the general consensus that I found across Africa is that when you talk about this concept of God, they equate God to the very existence itself.
Yeah.
And so from that perspective, for those African traditions that see God as existence itself, you cannot exist within existence and then deny the existence of God, since God is the very existence itself. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Even in the creation story of the Congo, for example, even Earth, the formation of Earth, the formation of the plants, God started like a fusion And the fusion exploded. And the pieces, some of the pieces became land, others became a sun, and others stars. So everything that exists are a piece of divinity, of God. So saying that God does not exist is like saying that I'm not existing myself. It's that I don't exist because I am a piece of God.
Indeed. Yeah, it's hard to fathom. And I argue just as you did that it is a modern, genuinely non-African concept. And I want to ask now, I state that you mentioned that, the human manifests itself as an explorer of unknown living spaces and a civilization builder. Do you believe this is by a divine mandate? Like, is that our particular role that you believe we were designed for, or is this just a natural evolution? Based upon, I guess the development of certain knowledge or whatnot. So with that, the follow-up question being, what is man's relationship to knowledge, science, and information, in his role as an explorer of unknown living spaces and a civilization builder?
But the way I stated, being an explorer is one of the definitional aspects of being human.
Mm-hmm.
The human being is created with an exploring mind, the mind for knowledge. We are expected to help the children develop their scientific mind, in the sense that we teach them the scientific mind. One of the things that we have is what? Is the mind to know the environment, observations, to observations of the resource of the environment, knowing them, and using them for the betterment of human conditions. So scientific knowledge is the ability to observe, record fluctuations, and analyze them, predict what might happen, and when it comes up, use it for the betterment of human lives. Take the example of the Egyptians. Science in Egypt developed out of the preoccupations of understanding the goodness of the Nile River, based on the annual fluctuations of the flows. When it flooded abundantly, the flows covered large space, and people could cultivate more food, have more abundance, and that helped the Egyptians to give them the idea of measuring the expanse of the land occupied by the flood, the quantity of food that will develop out of those, and those fluctuations, allowing them also to predict what might lead them to observing the movement of the stars and the sun, and they realize that when such and such star or the sun are in that particular position, we'll have more or less rain. So that led them to development, not only agricultural sciences, not only agronomy, but also mathematics, also astronomy. And that knowledge also, the abundance from that, helped them to develop, to build large kingdoms and a complex system of religion. So teaching children that is a spirit of observation, and use the knowledge to improve life. In Africa, among African Americans, you have a lot of examples. The importance of experimentation, systematic experimentation, which allows to one to bring much out of the little. Take George Washington Carver, what he did out of peanuts. And also the idea of teaching children problem solving the problems of human life and bring about solutions. We remember what Drew is known as father of blood banking.
Yeah.
He wanted to solve the problem of casualties during the war, and he found a system of collecting blood, banking blood, and using it to treat people. Oh, the lady, Walker, C.J. Walker?
Madam C.J. Walker, yeah.
Yeah, who developed a line of hair products to solve the problem that the black women had with hair, and many others. So scientific knowledge, you develop that spirit, that mind in children. That's what this invitation to being exploring the environment, not only local environment. If life is about building good life, so that puts the people to continue exploring, going into places where those resources are available. So we are called to be citizens of the world, and moving to where the resources that we need are, and have access to them to develop them. So training the children, exploration of the environment, the goodness from the environment, how to produce them, and have access to them, and move to the places where they are available, and they should be available to all. It's not that you go there and you take those resources from the people who are there, they become yours for you to sell and grow, but to fructify them so that they can serve to improve the human condition.
I just wanted to support what you stated, about the ancient Egyptians, in terms of the origins of their scientific knowledge. And so the Greeks wrote about the Egyptians, and the there was a this is in Plato's Timaeus, chapter 24, line C, and there was a Greek philosopher by the name of Solon who was speaking to an Egyptian elder, and the elder told him, the priest told him, as for the intellectual life, you observe, talking to Solon again, no doubt what care the law among us, the Egyptians, devotes to it, beginning with the first principles touching upon the universe. Our law has organized all discoveries down to divination and medicine, whose concern is health. From speculation about divinities, it has derived human applications and supervised the acquisition of all other knowledge generated therefrom.
Mm-hmm.
And so, from the speculation and interest in divine, trying to understand the spirit behind the nature, or nature itself, that's how they discovered all of the laws and principles, the scientific um, achievements or whatnot. And so they say this very explicitly, in this particular text. So it supports what you were saying, there. And so I cite this in Aluja,
Mm-hmm.
volume 2, but this is coming from the translation from Dr. Teofilo Binga, also from the Democratic Republic of Congo, but of the Mbochi
But
people.
what's particularly more interesting with the Egyptians is that theirs, the starting was empirical research.
Yeah.
Empirical research, okay? The fluctuations of the Nile, the quantities of food, taking them to looking up to the stars, and the stars being identified as sources of life, and from the stars to the gods, okay, and from there even to the pharaohs who want to become gods themselves, and building the pyramids, so that first they were meeting God at mountains,
Yeah.
and then they want to build more prestigious mountains, allowing them to reach God and become God there, become God. So the first pyramids were step pyramids because they were literally climbing there, climbing there. So yeah.
All right. Well, this will be my last question, and it's actually a two-part question. Well, I guess it could be considered two separate questions, but it's around the same central theme. So you have a chapter on the human as a speech master, and I want to know, what is the role of speech, to the human being, and why is that so important, or why is that very important in the uniqueness and the specialness of being human? And I wanted you to contrast. No, I'll skip that, because I want to go into my second follow-up question was on the Luba um, language game that the youth play, and I'm finding that also all across Africa, where they switch the syllables, uh, and so as part of that speech dynamic of being human, what is the role of speech, and in terms of the uniqueness and specialness of human, and if you can go into the nature of the syllable reversal games
Mhm.
among the Luba youth.
Okay. The speech, um, I would not say that the speech makes the human being special,
Mm-hmm.
but articulate speech enables one to fully assume one's special status as human.
Hmm. So not just any speech, but articulate
Articulate human
speech.
speech. And
Yeah.
that's part of what distinguishes the human being,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Which means that to be fully human is to have that ability.
Hmm.
And we know that the child becomes human through the communication, the speech communication that the adults have with the child. As the child grows up, the child learns the meanings of the speech of the adults and incorporate them, become part of him. The child cannot grow normally without speech, expressing his own needs, and without understanding the meanings of the relationships of the child with the adults.
Hmm.
Now, uh, the those qualities must be developed. And what we find about children, African children, is that they have a tendency of challenging each other on their ability to master language. So they will provoke you, say something, expecting you to um, understand quick and respond quick with accuracy.
Hmm.
So the inversion of syllables are based on the basic unit of speech
Hmm.
is meaningful words. Meaningful words. So the children learn how to master the meaning of words and express that mastery by pronouncing it quickly and
Hmm.
knowing it in reverse order of syllable. So they
Hmm.
will they do it without uh, what announcement. Will you are going to do something else? Or no, and then say a word in the reverse word,
Hmm.
reverse syllables, expecting you to respond in the correct order, and vice versa. So that allows one to develop speech and mastery of speech, quick for understanding, and the readiness to respond, and accuracy. And
Hmm.
uh, society, the speech allows them also to learn about the physical environment, and they do that by counting things that are important in human lives, uh, counting them in units of 10, counting rhythmically, just singing and, um, and articulating quickly different uh, types of um, different animal species, for example. Do it quick, without hesitation, and without the repetition of what has been done before. The same thing for the clans, the same thing for the marketplaces. So the language is being used here to acquire the knowledge of the immediate environment, of what in the environment is significant for life. And there is also enigma that they taught one another. For example, riddles. For example, children will be going on the street, one in front, the other behind, not looking, but with the head on the neck of the others, and asking what is on the street. And the response, there is a toad. Okay, there is a toad and a lizard. What it means is that there's no snake. There's no snake because the snake eats them. So this is a safe place to walk. Safe place to walk. So language allows them to do that. And the adults, of course, have different forms of expressing speech. Even after the words is the names, personal names. Names have signification, have meanings, and to names are added titles. Sometimes you see a name that is not only the name, the birth name, but there's also the titles. There's also the totem of the clan. So it's a carrier of messages through articulate speech.
It says I pull out this book. It has no cover. Well, it had a cover. I just don't have it. But this is a text by the late Lilius Holmberger, who, and this, what is this? The Negro African Languages. This was published in 1949. And she talks about the Fulani reverse. Like they do the reverse with the syllables in their language. Jean-Claude Mboling, in a personal communication, talks about this among the Sango people in the Republic of Congo. And I found this everywhere across Africa. And I just found an article on the Doluo out of Kenya, Uganda, who also their youth have these reversal, games. And I'm wondering, what is the origin of that? Like there has to be something more. It's not a coincidence that this is found all over Africa. That this has to, in my opinion, come from a common culture, an ancestral culture before everyone spread out, because it's ubiquitous, across the continent. And so that's a future research project. I've already discussed it in my text Nesu Biti that came out in 2016, but I found more since then. And so now I'm interested in this reversal in terms of the syllables. And because in some it's secret languages, even the adults still do it in some places, but in the vast majority of the places, they're all done by the youth. And so I find that, very interesting in terms of the speech. But
so if you study in terms of origin, you know that the human being came from East Africa.
Yeah.
And find whether it started from there or it started from them somewhere else and spread even to them.
Yeah. It's Yeah, it's one of those side research projects. And speaking of research projects, so I'm partly responsible for putting this book together and going over a second edit. And we come across well, it's all throughout the text, but in terms of, and how did you pronounce it? Because I keep pronouncing it Maweja, but it's
Maweja,
Maweja.
Maweja.
And we came across um, a part of the conversation where the names were being defined, but Maweja was not defined. And it, me being a linguist, it sparked my interest, because those are the kinds of things that just spark my interest. And so I'm saying all that to say is that your text inspired me to do some research and to write this text, which will be out sometime in November. Probably November the 6th is the date that I said. And so I titled it Chiluba, Maweja, Yoruba, Orisha, and Ancient Egyptian. We say Ak, but we don't know how it was pronounced. An explanatory etymological study. And I come to find out that this title, one of these names for God in Chiluba, is cognate with the Yoruba word Orisha. And that Maweja is actually, it's an ancient term. And you'll find different pronunciations all across Africa, even to the point where a language will have different variations of the same word and the people won't even know it. But speaks to the fact that there's different groups interacting with each other, and they're bringing their names and titles. Because when you think of Orisha, there's another name for God, Leza, that you'll find among certain Luba groups, but which is Reza in other groups across Africa, but which is Berza in others. And it is that Berza that becomes Weja because of the loss of B in an intervocalic position. And I also discovered that it is cognate with the word, well, of course, the ancient Egyptian. So this is if you can see, well, you can't see my mouse, but the bird that's in the center of the cover, which they say Ak, is really the word Orisha or Weja. And so I go through, the scientific exploration to show that these are all the same concept, and that it is a very, very ancient word for God or spirit, or just power, coming from originally a verb meaning to do or to make, which becomes a word for power, and then the word for power becoming the word for God itself, just like the word Nkole is used for an imminent or powerful person, God, but it derives from a root meaning to do, to act, to make, to create. That's the common theme. So basically, when you're saying God and all these different, or spirit, you're saying one who creates, the creator in essence. But your text inspired this text, which will come out later in the year. So I'm still doing some edits and things to it, but it's almost done.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for the research. And when we are speaking, when you refer to the powerful,
Uh-huh.
that reminds me of the Swahili word kuweza.
Uh,
When they ask utaweza, will you be able to? Can you afford it? Do you have the power to do it?
exactly.
Thank you. I would be willing to learn. Thank you.
Yeah, it's I was surprised. I'm like, there's no research really. It was really one source. There was many sources in that site that I was able to find that attempted to do it. But yeah, I had to go deep and expand beyond and do some sound correspondences, and I was able to find those relations, and even to the point that I argue that the word Ra in Egyptian is cognate. It's the same word. And what happens in the Egyptian language is that a word, in linguistics we call it paronymy. And that's when words that sound alike are believed by a population to have the same origin or a relationship between them. So there's a word for God, Ra, but there's also a Ra for the sun. And they combine these to come with the deity Ra. But we say Ra, but it's not pronounced Ra. It's really like Risha, Raja. One of the variations that you would find, like even in the Bantu, in more of the southerly ones, in terms of that version of Weza or whatnot. And so there's sound correspondence. So it's like it's your text inspired another text, which helps to further solidify the relationship between African people and this common conceptualization of what it means to be divine and divine forces, and also explains in many respects the concept of kingship. Because if the king is supposed to ascend to a god, what you're saying is that this is someone in a position who is able to make things happen, and that's what you are assigning that individual. You're saying that he or she, because in some traditions the king was a woman, that they have the command to well, they're really the personification of the steward of community resources, as Fukiao, would talk about. And so they have the command to aid in people working together for the benefit of the society itself, which is why that same word Nkole in Luba, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, is the same word for an eminent or powerful person and a divine, because it all comes back to that concept of the power of being able to do. But so I just wanted to say, thank you there.
Thank you for the research you are doing. Thank you for teaching me that Orisha is equivalent of Maweja. Is Maweja.
Yeah, it just doesn't have the prefix. And so it was, I solved two problems, because even Orisha itself, it is hard to find an accurate etymology for Orisha. So it was only looking at this. In matter of fact, this is the importance of the ancient Egyptian in the studies, because now you have an ancient language for which you can do your comparisons and have and do the sound correspondences between them. So I did that with Chiluba, did it with Kikongo, did it with Collagen, did it with Yoruba language, and we was able to come, to that conclusion. But that's in the future, sometime in November again. But currently now, again, the book is Muntu-Wa-Nzambi. And in Zombie, we didn't even get to discuss that. Being the name or a name for the creator or God in the Luba. And this is also all across Africa. In Zombie, it's in Nyambi. I've seen in Ghana in Nyamani. And so, and matter of fact, in the text again, I just added an appendix where I show that in Zombie is equivalent to the ancient Egyptian Amen and the Dogon Ama and the Ghana in Yame and other Imana in Rwanda. And so, all the details. So it's I couldn't wait for this book to be published.
Thank you.
So I can cite it in my research. So it's a lot in here. I'm telling you, it's approximately 300, around 330 pages in total. It's not just about Luba tradition, even though you will learn a lot about the Luba tradition culture, and he has a lot of Luba words that you'll get familiar with, foods, the number system, learning the Luba number system, family relation, kinship terms, and the dynamics of that. But again, also, he's doing comparisons with the Congo, Mongo, Yansi, Bashi, Hema, and Lindu. These are all Congo people, but of course the ancient Egyptians, the Bambara in West Africa and Fulani, the Dogon, Mandi, Yoruba, Igbos, Gikuyu, and the Amazulu in South Africa. So it's a very comprehensive text. And this is something that I think that you'll be going back to the shelf and referencing, and it'll be full of source material that if you want to explore some of these ideas and groups further, that you know where to go in the library to get those additional texts. But I want to thank you, again for your work, this life's work here, and for coming on to the program and sharing your insight and wisdom. And I will give you the last word. Anything that you want to say that is just on your mind, you have the floor.
Yeah. I wish to thank you not only for the opportunity to speak today, but to have the book itself published. The role that you have played in publishing this book is great. And your research and contribution are very, very important. And I encourage those who can to read the book in order to increase their knowledge on Africa, on Africanity, the complexity of the African cultures, and the different contributions to the world. And I think one of the uniqueness of the book is the organization of the book and personification of the aspects of culture and their being attributes of the human being, and the invitation that is to look not only at one society, but at many uh, societies in order to extract the humanness of uh, of Africans or of their conception of who the human is. So I'm encouraging you to read the book, to learn, and to share. If it's an element of culture, which means that it has elements of things to be taught to new generations so that they too can be um, can continue to perpetuate the African culture and African identity.
Mm. Indeed, indeed. And I want to give a shout out to your daughter, Sister Muwadi Mukenge, who was also very instrumental. She's mentioned on the cover at the bottom um, as editor, and um, so she
Thank you very much for being up, Marty.
yeah.
And actually, I owe her the completion and the publication of this book. Completion said that she was pressuring me to go ahead and finish it. I have been having this book for a long time. Daddy, that's been the last one. Yes, 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 last one. Let me think about it. And then another chapter comes to mind. I kept, she waited. And when it came up, she had done the editing and negotiations with the publisher, and she's continuing to do it today. I'm very grateful to her. Thank you.
Yes, indeed, yes. Shout out to uh, her. And again, you can purchase this text on Amazon.com and other online books. Um, we'll definitely have more conversations about specific themes, and y'all know I will be referencing this text for a very long time. And someone, Daniele Congo, says, I don't fully understand how Orisha is equivalent to Maweja or Maweja. Um, you will in November.
Okay.
And, you know, words, looks can be deceiving. And that's why you have to have a scientific approach to the study of languages. Words that you think are different um, may have a common origin,
Mm-hmm.
just like human beings and cultures. And so in due time, I'll have that discussion. So shout out to Sister Tamika, one of the moderators, for her work and support. Peace to Brother Ali Dawood L. I know you just received the book, so we look forward to your feedback. And there's a few people in the chat that I know personally who just received the text, so they'll be giving their feedback soon. So thank each and every one of you for listening. Make sure that you like the video and that you share it with friends and colleagues, and make sure that you subscribe to the channel. And I re-emphasize this: go to Amazon.com and purchase Muntu-Wa-Nzambi, Portrait of Human as God's Special Creation. And thank you, Dr. Mukenge,
Thank you.
for coming and spending your giving us some of your precious time to share your insights and wisdom. And
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
I'm very grateful. And with that said, uh, until next time. Y'all have a good weekend. Y'all stay safe and continue to wear your mask and wash your hands everywhere you go. But with that said, I'm out. Peace.